What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. Today I'm reviewing one that I didn't know was happening until about late last year, December time. Saw some trailers, saw the cast, saw the crew that was involved, and got very excited for one of my favorite subgenres in horror, the zombie comedy. Today we are talking about Lisa Frankenstein. I didn't know this was going to be a thing until late last year. I saw the trailers with Catherine Newton in them. I saw the writing and directing team that was going to be behind this, and I thought, man, for me, the zombie kind of subgenre has really gone the way of the successful zombie comedy, kind of horror comedy fusion. Because I grew up, watching a lot of zombie films. We've seen a lot of the serious zombie stuff with the George Romero stuff, the Night of the Living Dead stuff, the Walking Dead stuff. A lot of good serious zombie stuff, but because there's such an oversaturation of zombie horror, and because I live in Pittsburgh here where the George Romero and John Russo influence is huge, there's been so many overdone retreads of serious zombie stuff that I've kind of found myself more enjoying the zombie comedies. Things like Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse and Warm Bodies and what's the one with the snowballs? It's like movies like that. Those are the kind of things, Zombieland. Those are the kind of things that I enjoy a lot in the zombie horror subgenre. So when I saw this was going to be starring who it was starring and I saw the team behind it, I got pretty excited. So I went and saw this in theaters. I'm recording my second review of the day, and it just came out today as I'm recording this and posting it. So it's out this weekend. Talking about Lisa Frankenstein. It's one from 2024, obviously. This was written by Diablo Cody, who you guys know from Jennifer's Body and Juno and things like that. Directed by Zelda Williams, who's done like the JoJo music videos. She did like Kappa Kappa Die. So a very experienced, strong writing and directing team for this. This was starring Catherine Newton as Lisa. You know Catherine Newton from Freaky most recently, and also in Abigail coming out soon. Cole Sprouse as the creature, and you know Cole from like Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and I think more recently Riverdale. And Carla Gugino as Janet, and you know Carla Gugino from a lot of the Mike Flanagan movies and series on Netflix. So again, experienced writing team, very good modern team, really good casting situation. So I came to expect a lot from this. And the plot of Lisa Frankenstein, and this is spoiler free, obviously, it just came out today. But the plot basically is kind of an outcast girl who's kind of quirky and been through some trauma, and she's in a new place and has really no friends. And she comes to visit her mom at a gravesite and starts to kind of become friends and bond with somebody else who has died at the grave next to her mom. So she bonds with this person at this gravesite who's died, and throughout a thunderstorm and a strike of lightning, that person then comes to life in zombie form. So this person's kind of only best friend from beyond the grave has now come to life, and she has to figure out what to do with this person of her dreams, best friend, zombie gross creature thing, and we get kind of a comedy of errors and her trying to coexist and hide this zombie. That stuff is all in the trailer, so no spoilers there. Now, the first positive I'll mention is Catherine Newton. I'm a really big fan of hers. I saw her in the trailer and I was like instantly hooked on it. I saw her in Freaky with Vince Vaughn and I really fell in love with her as an actor. I think she has what it takes to be kind of a quintessential final girl like she was in Freaky, and she kind of plays a similar situation here, but she does it in a different kind of way. Catherine Newton has the potential here to not just be a new modern final girl, along with people like Samara Weaving and Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera and people like that, but she has this quirky character actor version of it. She kind of amalgamates the best friend kind of quirky character actor with the fierce final girl. So she kind of can do both. And that's a rare trait because she's not your typical final girl. She's weird. She's purposefully off-putting at times in her characters. She has this dry delivery that's pretty funny. She can make you laugh out loud, but also make the transformation when need be to be fierce and strong and kind of be a leader. And in just general, the next positive is casting in general. Obviously, again, Cole Sprouse, breakout young star. Carla Gugino, super experienced, does a really nice job with her character in this. I think the characters in this movie are very up and down for me, and we'll talk about, there's a lot to unpack in positives and negatives, but I think the casting, especially for those principal three, those main characters, and even the stepsister of Lisa Frankenstein here, I think is a really, really good actor as well. So the main people really put in good roles. They have good names, and they use themselves well. I like the main casting in this movie. Coloring is another big positive for me. Everything feels very vibrant. It's neon. I think the movie takes place in like 89 or something like that, late 80s, kind of right before the 90s start. So you get some 80s references, which are kind of cool. But more so, yeah, you get a lot of really neon colors, really bright, vibrant coloring. The stuff that's meant to be dark is done so in a nice way. All the light stuff is really well colored. I like the coloring of this movie. Really good choices in that way. Another technical aspect that I really enjoyed were the music choices. You get some music, I'm guessing all from that same era, that late 80s, early 90s kind of era. They use some songs that are purposely slowed down, which they made good choices on, which kind of give you, in some moments they're funny, in some moments they're romantic, things like that. But they also use the regular pacing of some of the older songs. They use a lot of mainstream music, and they do so to great effect. They ratchet up drama when need be, they create character bonds when need be, and they make you laugh when need be. Some of this music is used for comedy in a really positive way. So, again, along with the coloring, the music choices, I think, were excellent. This one here is going to come into a positive / negative. I wrote it down for both positive and negative here, and that is dialogue. I think some of this dialogue, and I'm a big fan of both Diablo Cody and Zelda Williams, but I think some of Diablo Cody's dialogue is really brilliantly funny. There's 3 or 4 times that I laughed out loud in the theater from some ridiculous dry humor delivery stuff that was really, really good. And I think part of that also goes into how Catherine Newton delivers stuff and receives stuff. She reacts to things well. And I think Carla Gugino's character stands out as well in terms of the comedy. She's a bit of a caricature over the top on purpose, but she does it so well, and she delivers things so well, and just her facial expressions really accentuate comedy. The dialogue and the facial expressions really are the positive parts of the comedy in this movie, so dialogue gets a plus there. Let's now go into the minuses, because there's some minuses to discuss here as well. And I'm going to just go right into the dialogue. Dialogue is a -2, because there are some things that are really cringy. There are things that just feel like they're cracking jokes at untimely places for certain things, and some of the dialogue they're going for jokes, and it's going to connect with a certain audience, but some of the dialogue just didn't connect with me. There's some stuff where, again, you have to really be careful in where you place your comedy and where you place your horror. This one is pretty much almost all comedy. There's very little horror in this. It's more so a comedy with a splash of horror, a little horror bay, salt pinched in the background. It's mostly comedy, which is fine. I think the ratio for me, I like a little more horror in my horror comedy. This one was the reverse of that, which nothing wrong with that. People will like it, but it was a little unbalanced for me. And some of the comedy was a little bit too slapstick. It was a little too in your face. And I think, again, if you have 1 or 2 characters that are acting over the top, or 1 or 2 characters that are unlikable, that's totally fine. But when it's most of the cast, or when it's done at the wrong time in the pacing or the timeline of the movie, it starts to kind of affect you, and you kind of roll your eyes and you go, they could have cut that. That was a little too much, or that was the wrong time for that. And I think some of the dialogue did that. Another big negative, and going along with piggybacking off what I just said, background characters. I think there's some really unlikable background characters in this. Carla Gugino being the exception. She's a really good over-the-top character, but you have the overly stoic dad who's not paying attention to anything, and he just kind of feels like he's there for no reason. And I get that he's there to balance out the craziness and balance out Carla Gugino, but he feels entirely useless in this thing. There's one character that's just there to do something wrong so that they pay for it later on in the movie, but they feel really like their character has no background and no use for there's just a lot of background character things that I feel like, I don't like a lot of these background characters. There's pretty much anybody that's not the main 3 or 4. I'm just really not a fan of in this movie. I feel like they did a really good job nailing certain aspects of the main 4 characters, and everyone else is either just there or doing stuff just to purposely move a certain plot point along, and you can kind of see that it's telegraphed. So I don't like a lot of the background characters in this, which means that I don't care when things happen to them. When someone goes missing or gets hurt or whatever, I'm not invested in those things, which is a big part of this movie. Transformation of Lisa. This is a big one for me too. They make it a point to make Lisa this, tragedy surviving loner who's awkward and quiet, used to be kind of mute, and she's trying to kind of grow from this mousy girl into this fierce girl who's kind of a badass rebel, which is kind of the same thing they tried to do with her in Freaky, which she did very, very well. That is why she shines so much in Freaky, and there's kind of the same version of this here, where she starts as this mousy girl and grows into this, badass, I don't care what's going on around me kind of character. And I don't think the writing led her any favors here. As an actor, she nailed it. It was really good. And like I said, there's moments in the script that are nice, but I really feel like they just, how do I explain this? There's a moment in the script, and I won't spoil anything, but there's a moment here where Lisa, she comes in and sees something, and you're meant to kind of sympathize with her because she's seeing something sad for her. But instead of feeling any sense of like sadness or betrayal, you just kind of feel like she's whiny and annoying. You don't really understand what her decision making is. There's something else later in the film that she lets happen that it just happens in front of her and she doesn't really react to. And you're like, oh, that kind of doesn't jive with her character. Why isn't she more concerned about this? And then it gets to a point where there's one scene where another character references like, you're making no sense right now. This makes no sense to me. And the character does stop making sense. And more so, the transformation of her, you don't really see it happen. Like, it doesn't feel like she's gone through things that make this transformation make sense. She starts as the mousy girl and she becomes fierce, but you don't really ever see when it happens. And you can attribute that to some kind of holes in writing to me. I don't really know where the moment came that she kind of learned this fierceness, but if we don't see anything on screen to make her turn fierce, it's not a case of really good writing hiding it. It's a case of like, oh, I know I didn't miss that. Like, what this transformation feels so sudden and so fierce, and nobody else is saying anything about it. It's so staunch, I should say, not fierce. But no one's really acknowledging, like, why are you suddenly saying these things? Why are you acting like this? Why are you okay with this thing? Why are you freaking out for this thing? None of this stuff is beholden to who she was before. And it's not subtle, and it's not really referenced, except when they're kind of making fun of it. It's just not done very well. And for the main character, especially with a team of writers, or well, a writer and a lead actress that are so good that I had such expectations for, I was disappointed, both in the way it was written and partially in the way it was portrayed. Another thing I have issues with the story itself is the romance aspect of it. There's a bit of a love story that, again, there's a scene where something happens. She sees something happen, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's going to lead us into this obvious love story thing. And she reacts in a weird way, and then she goes, and there's another aspect of the love story that happens, again, trying to avoid spoilers here. But she kind of falls for this character, and you're like, wait a minute, like, where was the actual connection there? Like where did it jump from like friends or conversationalist jumping into romantic partners and now being in this like entrenched love story where there's these destined lovers? You don't really get it. You don't really see it. There really is no romantic connection there. The one thing ends really sharply and the other thing starts really sharply, and there's no real build to either of them. You don't really see it at all, which I don't love the writing of that, and I feel like it really hurt the characters, which then in turn hurt part of the acting. And then another negative here is the ending. The ending also kind of, it comes out of nowhere, but also is telegraphed at the same time, if that makes any sense. It manages to be kind of obvious what they're going to do, but also kind of be a leap in logic. And this thing happens at the end that kind of reminds me, and this is not a spoiler, but it kind of reminds me of aspects of Return of the Living Dead 3. And like things like that, like there's like aspects of like Teen Wolf. There's different kind of things they pulled from, which I love for reference. But I feel like the ending they just jump right to it, and you're like, wait a minute, where did the internal clock go? Like, there's a lot of leaps in logic that get you to the end of the movie. And yes, I understand it's about a girl resurrecting a dead body as making her own kind of Frankenstein. I get that it's going to be schlocky and over the top, and there's not going to be a ton of realism or logic rooted in this, but I just feel like there's some logic things. It's like, how did this thing happen 4 days ago and no one reacted to it? How did someone make this move and not give a reaction? So it just feels like they skipped a lot of plot holes and skipped a lot of logic and just went, it's a zombie comedy. People are going to laugh at it. And yeah, there's moments you do laugh, but I feel like they missed out on a lot of aspects of the story. So I'm going to be a party pooper here. I didn't enjoy this nearly as much as I expected. There absolutely are some really good elements to it. The main cast is great. There's parts of the writing and dialogue that are really good. It's vibrant. There's good color. There's good music. There's some good acting. And if you like zombie comedies, this one falls right in that wheelhouse for you. If you like some of the ones like I mentioned earlier, like Zombieland and Scout's Guide and, Warm Bodies and things like that, you'll probably enjoy this. And I partially did too. But for my expectation, for the level of what I expected based on the trailer and the credits of people involved, I expected a lot more. It felt a little paint by numbers at times. It felt like it skipped over a lot of stuff. And it felt like a lot of people were very unlikable, and the characters didn't build in the way that you would watch for characters to build in a movie like this. So all in all, I didn't hate it by any means. It is not a bad movie, but it is a little schlocky, it is a little silly, and it does jump over a lot of what I think are important story and character elements. So I'm going to give this one a 5.5 out of 10, slightly above average, but probably not going to stand out when it comes to the end of the year for me. So tell me in the comments below if you saw it. What did you think of it? Please talk to me in the comments and tell me, am I being too harsh on this? And what else are you looking forward to coming out in the rest of the year? And what else would you like to see me review on this channel coming forward? I know Abigail with Catherine Newton. I'll be reviewing that one again too. But please like, share, and subscribe if you like these movie deep dives. And talk to me about what else I should review in the future. And I will see you guys soon. I hope you enjoy this. It's in theaters now, so go check it out if you want to. Take care.